now you know my profession. For those of you that don't, let me tell you that I am a professional investigator. And that brings with it a whole set of skills that I think the lady who just came up with could have done very well. Part of it is being gregarious, and part of it is being able to assume a personality when you need to. And sometimes we get hired to do a job when the job is in progress, and sometimes we get hired to establish whether a lawyer will actually take on a case and make a lawsuit. And in this particular situation, and by the way, I changed locations and names and times. In this case, the people are all dead, so we're not going to get sued, so I can continue with this. That's a problem, believe me. So I was told by my attorney that a group of people had been poisoned by lead smoke on a bridge, and he wanted to know if this was real, if it was true, and if the owners of the bridge or the people who were working on the bridge knew about this. In that case, it would be a really big lawsuit, and they could win it. If they were not really that sick, they didn't want to handle the case. And my job was to somehow or another get on the bridge and talk to people who were on the bridge, who were working on the bridge, or who were in charge of it. Now, this is not an easy thing to do for a female to just kind of walk to the top of a suspension bridge and say, "Pardon me, but is there smoke here, and is anybody inhaling it, and are you sick from it, and are you going to die?" I mean, this is not a good thing. So I figured out a way to handle this. So I assumed the identity of a reporter, which was really easy. I took my notepad and I left the house. I got in my car and I drove to the bridge. And on one side of the bridge there was nothing, so I drove over the bridge, and on the other side of the bridge there was a construction trailer. And I said, "Pretty smart, Sherlock, I can do this." And so I went to the construction trailer, where I immediately got yelled at by a bunch of people for not wearing a hard hat. But I didn't have a hard hat, I was wearing heels. You don't wear a hard hat with heels, it's not a good accessory. So I finally found the right person who said, "And what are you reporting for?" And I, on the top of my head, said, "A documentary on linking two worlds." And they said, "Well, it's not exactly two worlds, it's sort of like New York State, you know?" It sounded really good. And I said, "And if I get enough information, we'll bring a film crew." And they said, "Oh, we're with you." So I got in the car of the guy who was in charge, and he was telling me how many rivets were in the bridge, how a suspension bridge works. I want to find out about people who died on the bridge. So I start asking questions. And I start saying, "Well, have you ever had an accident? Does anybody ever get hurt?" And he went into his litany, which was really a problem because as he was talking, he was driving to the top of the bridge. And he stopped the car on the top of the stand. And I forgot to tell you, I am deathly afraid of heights. I am so afraid of heights that when I am on a height, my knees start to shake and I can't stand. And we were on the top of the bridge and he said, "Why don't you get out and we'll talk to some of the men?" And I thought, well, that's what my assignment is, but my feet aren't moving. So this is a problem. And I explained to him that I was just a little timid, but so he helped me by my arm, and all the while he starts telling me about things that happen, like people that walk into traffic, and people that fall off the bridge, and people that fell from the parapet into the cement while the bridge was hardening, and they're still there. And I'm starting to get really petrified. And then he says, "Come with me," and we get into an elevator that leads us up to the tower at the top of the suspension. And I am now shaking as he's telling me about the people who were intentionally pushed off the bridge. And I figure he's on to me and I am next. We get out of the elevator and I swear to you, I can see 5,000 miles, except that I'm crying because the tears are involuntarily coming down my face. So I do what I have to do. I take my heels off because, of course, now I'm 4 inches lower and that makes a difference. and the elevator doors open when you're down yet, because he was thinking I had enough of being up at that height, and I was scared to death, I was shaking, but I realized by the time I got down to the bottom, and I walked barefoot across the stand into his car, which was really stupid, and he took me back, and I could not read any of my writing, but it occurred to me that while telling me about the people who fell from the bridge and the people who got hit by cars, he also told me about the people who got poisoned by bed smoke. He also told me about the people who were dying daily because of the things that happened, because being an iron worker is a really difficult job. And so, well, I must admit, I did not overcome my fear of heights that day. I am an investigator who always gets in a ring.